Hey guys, I wanted to have a little chat about the difference between owning your story and sharing your story. Here's why. I shared a video about your story, episode 1, and the power in owning and sharing your story. And I believe both of those are really powerful, but they are not the same thing. And I've had some great conversations this past week, two conversations specifically with different people around this topic. And then a third thing happened that made me realize, yeah, I really want to speak to this. Back when I was working as a vet, things always happen in threes. You know, if you had 3 dogs come in that were vomiting because they'd eaten something they shouldn't have, you'd wait for if you had 2 of those, you'd wait for the third one because it was going to show up. And I still find things in life happen in threes. And this is my third thing on this topic. At the same time, this past week, I was reading this book. It is a brilliant read. It's called The Personal Librarian. I recommend it. And it's a historical fiction piece. And I'm going to say more about that in a moment. So these 3 things kind of came into my world in the last week. And I thought, yeah, I want to speak to this a little more. Because owning story, sharing your story, both really powerful, quite different. And specifically in the conversations I had, they were around, well, what if you're not ready to share your story? What if it's not safe to share your story? That's okay. Your story is yours. Thing 1, your story is yours. Thing 2, you choose when you share it, and you choose to whom and with whom you share it. Could be to one person, one trusted person. It could be to a stage of people because you're talking to like 100 people and you're sharing your story. They're all equally valid and equally powerful and important. But yeah, you don't have to share your story on any kind of timeline. And there are a lot of reasons why you might not be able to share that story. It may not be safe to. It may not be the right time. You may not feel ready. So that's okay. 100% okay. Owning your story really is a little bit of a different beast, because with owning your story, you're looking at like, oh, okay, this is my story. These things happened to me. I made these choices. I've lived my life in a certain way, and I accept that, and I love myself, or I like myself, or I accept myself with all of that, not just with the good and easy things, but also with the hard things. And some of you I know have had really hard things happen in your stories and painful things. So owning your story is really about choosing to accept yourself, accept what has been, and then also accept that you get to choose what's coming, in the sense of you can say yes to things, you can say no to things, you can chase your dreams, you can, with time, learn to respond to things instead of reacting to things. These are all pieces of owning our story. And I would say that is the most important piece, because it starts to help us learn to let go and just give ourselves a bit more permission in life. It helps us sometimes come out of that place of feeling more like I'm a victim because these things happened to me, and recognize that these things did happen, but I get to step forward from them, and I get to be the author of my ongoing story, right? And make my choices. And that's pretty cool. So that's how owning and sharing are different. And it might be at some point after you've really owned your story, you feel comfortable sharing it. Awesome. It might be as part of the owning process, you share that story with someone who is trusted and safe. Those are keys. But they are different, those 2 things. And what I wanted to use this book for is just as an example of a woman who did that. So the book is a historical fiction. It's written about a woman called Belle Marion Greener. That's her birth name. She was a Black woman who lived in the States in the early 1900s. She was born to 2 Black parents and had either 4 or 5 siblings. And she and all the siblings had light enough skin that they could pass for being white. And in the society that Belle lived in, that was a big deal. Especially her mom wound up becoming a single mother. And it was decided that in order to survive, let alone thrive in this early 1900s American environment they were living in, they would pass as being white. So Belle changed her name. She became Belle DaCosta Green, and that's the name she lived her life under. And she got a job working for a business tycoon, J.P. Morgan. She became his personal librarian and grew his library collection to incredible heights. She became well known in society. She supported her family and then some. Women looked up to her. And her whole life was spent living this white piece of her and having to suppress the black piece of her. And she never shared this story. Any historical record of her it's not present. It's assumed that she destroyed that at some point. There's just a tiny bit of correspondence with one relationship that she was in. And that to me is this example of she never really got to share her story. It's been written about. It's been fictionalized historically. But imagine what she was feeling as she lived this life that was only partly her. But she chose to live that life, to look after her family. She embraced that value. So maybe she owned that story, but maybe she didn't get to share it. I don't know. It would be lovely to chat with her. That's what I have. I hope it is helpful. Until next time.